Hi, everybody. This is Steve Butler. And I'll be honest with you, man. I am completely burnt out on trying to dig for the truth and believing that it actually makes a difference to anybody. Um, my experience completely, from my investigation with the Zodiac to Joan Benet Ramsey to Cherry Joe Bates to Nancy Guthrie and now to this wrench attack in Scottsdale, Arizona. Every time I'm able to talk to the person who's in charge of investigating, where um, a lower level police officer or agent talks to me and they're like, wow. And then they elevate me to the person that's going to make a difference. Every single one of them have talked to me one time, not really looked at the information I'm talking about, and basically tried to shut me down as fast as possible and not really respond to me at all for the most part, except in one case in San Francisco. And that detective, Scott Warnicki, when he actually took me serious, we went through the information and we found one of the Zodiac members on a newsreel, right? A female member. A week before he was about to make a presentation in the homicide department about this information, he was put on suspension. And I think he was on suspension for the next 2 to 3 years. And then when he came back, he basically left me a message and said, just watch your back, and then he retired. The San Francisco reporter, Kevin Fagan, who I had sent an unsolicited email to, who had gotten back to me like within 24 hours of finding it and saying he had never seen anything like that in over 35 years. Information about how I was able to find a real name in the Z13 cipher and match it up with a real person that actually looked like the person of interest photo at Lake Berryessa, and showed other information that really locked it in that this was actually that person. He was told by the FBI that David Ornchak cracked the Z340, and he told me that that's why he ran the story. I told Kevin Fagan after he published that story that information wasn't correct. That to believe that there's no information in the Z340 cipher is insane. Nobody goes through all that not to say anything. He says, well, is it possible? I said, well, it's possible that it's another layer of coding, sure, based on how the mathematician said that there were shifts that he detected. You could pull that information out and have another solution that's kind of like what I would call a shadow solution, right? But when I watched David Ornchak's presentation and he told me that he randomly threw out information, right, and that a computer magically found the answer, and that his known was this thing about that wasn't me on TV last night. As much as I liked the guy, I didn't feel that was strong enough to believe that it was as important as the announcement made, right? So I'm not here to put the guy down, but what I'm saying is I was able to generate a ton of truthful information out of the Z340 cipher. I got a visit by, like a man in black kind of guy that said, basically, we really would like you to not talk about it, right? And me and Kevin Fagan became really good friends, and then he retired. And in my last conversation with Kevin Fagan, man, he begged me not to tell him the truth. Even though he believes I probably haven't. He's like, I don't want to know. And I was like, why, man? He's like, you have no idea what it's like being on that case. He's like, the amount of threats, the amount of pressure. He didn't want to just say all the liars, scammers, and people around him. He was talking about, the government and a lot of other things. He said he just wanted peace. I love the guy, and I said, man, you know what? And then I'm not gonna tell you the truth. recently, I was sending information to the Pima County Sheriffs and posting it on Reddit, and the blowback I got on Reddit was just insane. Right? Like, the people who were involved in these crimes are actually on Reddit, on subreddits with the names of these crimes, just pushing lies like it's going out of style. And you can tell that they're lies because they actually know how to turn information on exactly the points that you would see with your own eyes that point to the actual person and persons involved in the crimes. You can only do that if you know the truth, right? So eventually, they did a block on the account that they were using because I believe that it was overwhelming, the amount of truth there was, but also the pushback was overwhelming. So apparently, those people, they know each other. These people have been on there for 17, 18 years. They're probably the reason why the site, the platform has its success today. So they owe to these criminals, a debt of gratitude. And I was an interloper. So it is what it is. I deleted the account along with my buddy Ben Watson Jr., who I loved, right? My main man who was out there taking the hits in the front so Steve Butler could do the cryptology. And just accepted the fact that at this point it doesn't seem like anybody gives a damn about a serial killer just running wild and having the bravado, or whatever that word is, to just shove it all in our faces. So I got through to a detective at Pima County, and then he pushed me to the FBI task force, which I didn't know at the time that's the guy was calling from the task force. And it wasn't a conversation. He tried to find one single little small thing to say, we're not going to be listening to your advice. Now, they say they take every lead as important. They follow up every lead, right? I guess his idea of following up a lead was calling me up and talking shit, right? He didn't say, wow, this is important stuff. There may be a small thing here that I think may not be right in terms of you getting to your conclusion, which was like a picture of a church, right, inside. So there's one in Tucson and there was one in Tempe. And it's really hard to find the pictures of the one in Tucson. But there are similarities in structures in churches. So instead of saying, well, that same structure might exist at the other church, let me get a picture of the other church and see if that lines up with your logic, right? Where we can nail the right church and investigate. It felt like the same old 99. Like, I'm with the FBI and you're not going to succeed in telling people the truth. That's what it felt like to me. Now, I haven't talked to him anymore. I've sent information to him. I don't know if he's blocking me, if he's taking it. I have no idea. I did all this because I thought it was the right thing to do. At this point, I wouldn't know what the right thing to do was if it hit me in the back of the head. I personally think that people get murdered that didn't do anything to you is wrong. I personally think that, the folks that do that kind of stuff should face some type of punishment. I can't imagine what it is that they're actually hiding or afraid of. But I will tell you this, that in the initial stages of the information that I was digging up, the people or the person, right, that represented the largest group of individuals that have the most power, that gentleman seemed terrified that I had the talent to see or do what I found. I will admit to you guys that about 3 or 4 days ago, I had been avoiding something on Reddit that I knew was meant directly for me, because I can read the code. And I knew that they put it out for me because they put an olive branch in it. And there's a symbol that is in the code that has existed since the 60s that I can follow through Cherry Joe Bates, Zodiac, Joan Benet, all the way up to today, to these live big cards that I'm looking at now. And I could never, ever, 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 ever tell what that symbol was. Right? I couldn't figure it out to save my life. And there were like 4 letters that were kind of around too. And I was like, there's things I could kind of make it what it was, but I could never really nail it down. And I don't know how I figured it out or how I came to it, but I'm gonna be honest with you guys. In the Zodiac, some of the most predominant symbols you'll find are actually created as a derivative of where their base was, right? If it was NAS Alameda or Hunters Point or NAS North Island in San Diego, Coronado, right, or Mar Island, there'd be a shape that they would use to represent that base, right? And that's how they would communicate. They would be like this base to that base, blah 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 blah. But you could actually, like at NAS Alameda, you could go in there, and once you realize that they were on the USS Enterprise, they did like Westpac. I was able to go in there and literally find pictures and the rank of people who were in the code using their abbreviated military ranks and truncated listings of their name, and find them. I mean, there's no more greater validation than actually finding something you could have never known other than decoding it, right? And when I found this last one, it took my breath away. It did take my breath away. And without telling you exactly what I found, right, for the first time, I feel like I've probably wasted 5 years of my life. Because whatever this is may be so far above my pay grade, right, or my existence on this earth, that it's hard to even comprehend what could possibly be going on here. However, in the strained mental abilities of being open-minded, it would probably be the only answer to why an obvious, narcissistic, absolutely unabashed, unafraid, serial killing, unbelievably psychopathic individual is allowed to have existed over all that time, when people honestly, with any technical skills whatsoever, would have identified his cryptologic calligraphy images simply on a handwriting analysis. If you just zoomed in to the ransom note of Nancy Guthrie, it's there. If you zoom in to the Joan Benet Ramsey ransom note, it's there. If you zoom in to a myriad of communications through the Zodiac stuff and Cherry Joe Bates, I mean, any competent person would obviously have at least seen that and realize that this is not an individual who is trying to hide their handwriting, right? This is code. And that's what the FBI does, is code. But in the entire release under Freedom of Information Act, if you go to the FBI vaults for Zodiac, of which there is some good information in there, people just don't realize what they're watching, right? But there's 6 volumes. There are less than 10 pages dedicated to cryptology. And the only The only reason those 10 pages are on there is because they basically just got tired of BS coming in to the labs. They didn't want to deal with it anymore, right? So they took this Z340 solution that Robert Graysmith did, which is based on the exact same premise that the Hardens used, that David used, that those ciphers are transposed and substituted, and they're not. And the FBI analysts that broke it down between pages 16 and 15 and 18 or somewhere, 16 and 19, like it was like 3 pages, basically said you have to be the dumbest person on the planet Earth to look at those ciphers and all that plain text and imagine that anybody that wanted to benefit from the secrecy of double encryption, which transposition and substitution is, would leave any, all, or some of that plain text after the transposition phase, because that's exactly what transposition is meant to do. He basically just stopped short of saying stop, right? And I knew that, okay, they know. So they actually did know. And then you go further, there's a letter from the assistant director of the FBI, I forget his name at the time, and Chief Gaines in San Francisco had just sent this urgent letter saying, please help us with the cryptology. And the guy just blew him away in a paragraph. He said, look, the cryptology that relates to the zodiac letters, and then he rattled off some of the numbers, especially, the Z340 cipher, blah, 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 has been examined by the FBI since the first day that you sent it. And to this point, we have not been able to extract any confirmed solutions. And if we do, we'll get back to you. Basically, don't call us, we'll call you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not San Francisco Police Chief Gaines. I got the same response. So this video, again, may just be in vain, because it looks like the local police forces in each city that this individual is involved in the crimes have rolled over. They've either been convinced that the people are dead, nothing's going to come of telling the truth, right? Or they got the badge flash that said national security, stand down, or they were promised more money if they just left it alone. Whoever it is, whatever it is, this is what they do. Right? This is what they do. But on January 31st in 2026, 2 young men lives are probably ruined, at least partially, depends. They might even get off, considering that, again, nobody wants the truth. Jackson Sullivan and Skylar LaPele, if that's how he pronounces his name, decided to drive from California to Scottsdale, Arizona. They were recruited by some people online. They say they were extorted. They said one of the contacts' name was Red and the other one was 8, and that they were given, right? That they were given money and supplies for this operation. It says the handlers provided the target address, wired $1,000 to fund disguises and restraints, and coordinated the operation. Now, I don't know exactly how they communicated with these young men to coordinate the operation, all right? But what I can tell you is that online, on eBay, the gentleman I believe that's involved in these crimes, the mastermind of these crimes, the person that they were referring to when you see these stories on TV, uses these things and his specific talent, right, to memorialize or to transfer this information to people who then transfer it to somebody else. And there are live big trading cards that I had retrieved way back when that relate directly to this home invasion in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I believe that it was coordinated along with the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. This was on January 31st, 2026. That was on February 1st. Well, basically 24 hours or so later. And in this one little paragraph right here where it says the handlers provide the target address, wired money to fund disguises and restraints. Just in that one paragraph lies information in this card, in these cards, this card right here that I'm going to show you in a minute, that really seems like it just cannot be coincidence. Now that might not matter to anybody. No, like you say, no one cares. I send this to the police all day. I'm not gonna hear anything. And if I do hear something, they're just gonna tell me to go mind my own business, right? But look, these people got beat to death. That woman got kidnapped. She's dead. I'm seeing information that makes me wonder about all kinds of things. But one thing I am sure of is that Albert Lee Terry Jr., a guy who faked his death in 1971, is Friar David Collins of St. John Apostle in Kingston, Ontario. And he is one of the most prolific serial killers in American history that everybody knows but doesn't know. And that he has not spent a day of his life regretting any of it. As a matter of fact, he sold scripts about it under a pseudonym. I mean, I want somebody to show me a picture of R.M. Fink. Give me a background of R.M. Fink. From the information I have, straight from Friar David Collins, right? Which people don't even believe. That's how arrogant he is. When he realized I could read his stuff, he communicated with me and told me basically, there's nothing you can do. He told me I was out of my league. He's probably right? He said he made a ton of money off of that shit. Okay? Should I even show you this stuff? I mean, do you even care? I'll give it a shot. So these are the two young boys that were detained. I think I have another picture of them where we can see their faces a little better. Oh yeah, I do. I have it over here. So I'll get rid of that. And I'm going to pull up this trading card. So this is the trading card that is at the center of everything. So you see this title is code. You see a 58, a kind of blooded 8 and an 8 here. Some information on the card and a couple of people in a covered wagon, right? Now I'm going to show you something here. So Albert creates these cards and he actually tries to place the picture of the people, the contacts in the cards, either for memorial reasons or for communicative reasons, because they're not actually calling each other on the phones or sending emails that I know of. Although we found somebody that we believe is involved, and she has like 20 phone numbers and a gang of emails that we think they use surreptitiously. But nonetheless, other people involved need to know what these people sort of look like. So this young man and his facial features, right? And this young man and his facial features. I believe that this jawline is this jawline, and that this more pointed jawline with you could tell that the unique kind of chin thing he has there was emphasized here. So these are those two in a car, right? A covered wagon. And the person they said was one of the contacts was 8. Red, we believe, is a guy by the name of Robert Dennis, we don't say his last name, right? So all that matches up with Albert Lee Terry Jr., Friar David Collins doing his magic over a distance with his communication techniques, right? In the actual card itself, I'll pull this down and I'll get rid of that. I believe that this is probably a representation of Red, the person who is saying, good luck on your journey, gentlemen. Remember, they were provided with money. They were provided with disguises and costumes. So these guys have mustaches, hats, and costumes. They were dressed as delivery people when they showed up. And I believe the car was stolen, which would be a covered wagon, right? One of the young men's names was let's see, do I have that written here? Exactly. So if you look at this and you pull this over and you look at the code, Skylar La, however you pronounce that, and I took French, right? So in French, right, L apostrophe could be the or some other appropriate assimilation of removing a vowel before another vowel. But it's obvious to me that this is not being read as Albert Lee. He's never put a apostrophe in between the A and the L to represent his own name. So cryptologically speaking, and in relation to the event, they said only one of the boys was really contacted and he recruited the other one. So I don't know which one it was, but I believe it was probably this kid, because his name is being represented in the code right here. So that's another coincidence, right? So we're looking at costumes, disguises, right? Covered wagon, stolen car, 8 as a contact. That in this coded part of the message, right, that there is something that looks like it represents one of the boys' last names, right? I can't go through all of this code and tell you exactly what it means, but I will show you something else. So you see right here, right? I'm gonna go into this area a little closer. If you had read the information that I had talked about earlier, it said that they were provided with also things to bind the people with, right? So they got money, they got disguises, they were dressed like delivery men, and that they were provided with instruments and tools to bind the people that they were going to try to beat information out of to get to their Bitcoin account. And this is the day before Nancy Guthrie's abduction. All right, so let's see. Where is that? Oh. So first I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to do like this, and then I'm going to zoom. So as you zoom in, you see the unique talent of Albert Lee Terry Jr. He has the ability to embed faces and pictures into other pictures that blend in so much you don't even notice that they're there. But you do see these people down here, right? Kind of along for the ride. I'm going to zoom into this area right here. And so this was one of the boys, right? The one with the chin. And as you can tell, what looks like should be a break or something, is attached to his hand, right? And I'm going to zoom into this area right here. As you can see, there is a person right here, and this bar is in that person's mouth. That person is being restrained. He's tied up. He's got something in his mouth, and this looks like a piece of metal or something you could beat the living crap out of him with. And right here, to me, looks like a female with a bonnet on that might be his wife, and that this suggests that he's telling these young men to be successful, bind the husband, tie him up, put something in his mouth so he can't talk or scream, and beat the living crap out of him. And she'll tell you where the computer is with the Bitcoin and the PIN codes or whatever that you need. I don't know how anyone in their right mind could think that that's a coincidence, because that's not an accident. You're not just painting and then that image just shows up, right? And it's attached to his hand, and then the woman with the hat on is here, like with a bonnet, like just some Arizona type people, and this guy looks terrified. So when the things that you are observing, right, in any investigation begin to add up to the forensic evidence that you have, you often would continue to investigate. So here's the bigger picture, and there's your guy right there. He's bound, and that looks like a billy club. And then if you just cut this part off here, there's a face of a woman, right, with a bonnet on. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. The jaw lines match. The fact that they're dressed up in costumes with the mustaches matches, right? There's a dude saying good luck, so there's a contact person, right? I've never seen an instrument like this. Maybe you guys have, but I believe that is a representation of them leaving Tucson and then heading down to, leaving Scottsdale and heading down to Tucson. Because in here, I believe is coding that says, after doing this job, I need you to go down to Tucson. So I was looking at that little sickle blade, and upside down, I thought, it could represent this little road designation, the 10 freeway, straight there, because I've seen his coding before where he uses instruments and things like that to represent a map, right? So moving away from that, there is an area, let's see if I can find it right here. This one isn't as clear, but can you see the woman right here with her mouth wide open and the guy screaming and terrified? Or I don't know if that is a guy, but looks like a couple that is just in absolute terror. I don't know if that looks just like the couple that they were supposed to get to, because they went to the wrong address. So just like the people in the Nancy Guthrie thing that were so amateurish that they didn't realize she needed her medicine and allowed her to die before they could ever get proof of life, right? These idiots went to the wrong address, and the son was hiding in the back calling the police, and they got caught. But maybe if I knew who the real people were, not that I want to out them or, see them, because obviously this isn't important to the police, only to people who just have some kind of interest in it, I would I would wonder if the research they did showed exactly what they look like and if this woman looked like the wife. And they're on a brick. So apparently these kids have been told by these things that look like people right here that are surrounding the situation, right? Co-conspirators, that you should use a brick if you have to get the information that you're looking for. I'm kind of being tongue-in-cheek about this because I literally have lost faith, right? That anybody gives a rat's ass about any of these people, any of these crimes, or any of these people's lives, or any of our lives, because this particular criminal seems to be above the law. And he's not just stealing money, right, from institutions who probably can't afford it. He's murdering grandmothers and 6-year-olds and college students, and just about with and not so much as even blinking an eye, as if he gives a damn that they know it's him, because he leaves his signature cryptology everywhere he goes. And if the handwriting experts at the FBI or any other institution couldn't tell that the JonBenet Ramsey ransom note was coded information when the pictures look like letters and the letters look like pictures, then why are they testifying in anybody's trial? I mean, they didn't testify that it wasn't. Maybe that's why they don't want this stuff to go to court. Because if they go to court and they lie, then every case that they'll ever be in, every defense attorney from now until the turn of the century, unless every single one of them were fired, will raise the question as to whether or not the FBI is telling the truth in their forensic presentations based on a preference of whether they want someone convicted or not. Which might be why these cases don't go to court, because if they ever did go to court and a settlement wasn't reached and the actual trial came about where they had to testify, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because I don't believe that the FBI would go in there and lie. I don't think that they have an analyst, as a majority of people, those are good people working there, that would put themselves in that position. So being quiet is one thing. Testifying as to an untruth is a total another thing. And I don't think that they're those kind of people. I believe in them. We need them to protect us. So as I'm going back into this, and I've shown you those coincidences that I don't believe are coincidences, there's a lot more in here, but I'm only going to pretty much show you one more thing that caught my attention that I thought might bear looking into. So I'm going to get my little trusty notepad out. I'm going to get a new tab, and we're going to do a little... Oh, we don't want to do that. Let's just close. Just close it, man. Thank you. Kind of extracted something I didn't want to extract. So let's move that over here. And most of the time, these titles are code, right? And it took me a while to figure that out, because I was always looking for the titles here. Oh, wait a minute. There is one more thing I wanted to show you before I did that I don't think is a coincidence. So when I say cryptology, right? I don't think I took an individual picture of this. But you know how they call this new type of crime a wrench attack? In other words, I guess somebody that first did this in like San Francisco or something, or New York, went in and beat the dude with a wrench in order to get the information about the Bitcoin. Well, this part down here at the bottom of the card, right? This Liebig trading card that you would never think twice about in terms of a national news story crime about kids breaking into a house in costumes, dressed as delivery people in a stolen car, a covered wagon, of which they beat and tied and restrained a couple in order to steal Bitcoin after driving 600 miles from their home in California, right? At the direction of a person they never met, who represented himself and another person as Red and 8, all these things that relate to the individual that I'm talking about that are memorialized somehow in this card, right? Would have even another coincidence. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrench. Okay? That's a wrench. That is a straight up bad boy booger, bang, boom, boom, straight out, ghettoized, kind of roll in, nothing move but the money wrench. Okay, that is a wrench. And the code here is really easy to read. It says a wrench for your pigeons. Okay? That is about as ghetto as it gets, but it's real. That's what I like about ghetto information, because it's real as real can get. So here's the code of the Scottsdale Wrench attack. I know some people out there laughing right now. They're like, man, that dude crazy. But isn't that a wrench? Okay, so the F is a wrench. Let's get real. Okay, this ain't no coincidence. This is a hit list. This is what you got when you were sitting in the room with a bunch of gangsters and they said, this is your job, this is your job, this is your job, burn those pieces of paper. Except this guy does it on trading cards, on Liebig. That's a wrench. Okay? And then he's double using the FOUR, right? Plus the F. He don't even care. Plus the F to equal 4, which is phonetic for 4. Right? So here's a wrench 4, and then you back it up. He's got the UR equal for your, as in yours, the people you own, right? Yours and mine, right? And any hoodlum worth his salt, okay? Any player on the planet Earth, from your great-great-great-grandfather to like a little kid that's just growing up with a bunch of gangsters, right? Everybody knows that is pigeons, okay? I don't even know how to spell pigeons. That is what that is. Okay, that is what GONS is. Pigeons. Here is a wrench for your pigeons. That's like I said, they don't care. Police don't care, right? Like if I really didn't want to get racist, but let me tell you, if these people were black, right, and they got this kind of coded information from a white dude about black people going to Arizona beating the hell out of white folks with a wrench to get their Bitcoin, that white dude would be getting a Medal of Honor, right, for his ability to crack the intricate codes of a international mastermind from this criminal enterprise of degenerate individuals who would take advantage of the elderly and their wealth, right? Putting on costumes and driving across country, right? And wearing and entering the home under false pretenses, right? No one is safe. That's what the story would be, right? I'm brother, right? And this is white on white crime, right? That's none of my business, I guess. They just hate me. They try to kill me. They try to hurt me. They trying to take my money. They doing everything they can. But yet the dude who's putting this together is out here talking about a wrench for your pigeons. Oh man, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. So, I forgot what I was thinking about. All right, so it goes on. This is more code. This is really complicated right here, and I'm not going to get into it. But what I will say is, as a code, AUTOMB MOI, and then there looks like a person or something, kind of like represented by a reverse C, another I. It looks like maybe. And then I can't tell. It's supposed to be an L, but it is actually another person. And then an E and an S. Right? I do believe that the AU is Arizona University. The middle part, I think it could be St. Thomas More Catholic Church, right? Because I believe that's where Nancy is been placed, right? And that the rest of that stuff is the identification of a name or names. I think there's a name being introduced here that I don't know, and I'm going to leave it at that. But what I will say is this, is that if they're given a wrench for the pigeons, right, and they drop the wrench attack, and then they're talking about Arizona University, TO, and then whatever this is, that could be at Arizona University tomorrow, right, which would have been the next day, right, which would have been where Nancy Guthrie was, right, and Arizona University does have the St. Thomas More Catholic Church there, right? And I believe that sickle blade that didn't look real represented the travel from the I-10 down from Scottsdale to Tucson, and that there's a name or names in here, right? That this is being used for all those purposes, this one word, that either on because that seems to only be a 2-hour drive from what I saw on the map, that either January 31st, right, late evening, late afternoon to evening, to July 1st in the morning or anytime that day before Nancy Guthrie's abduction, that there was going to be a meeting of these two boys and a third person. That's what I see. I see one person here, one person here, one person here, and they're saying you're gonna meet this person. You two need to get down after the wrench attack, and you done beat the crap out your pigeons and got the information. You need to get down to Arizona University, to the St. Thomas More Catholic Church tomorrow, right? And you two are gonna meet somebody down there, and that person's name may or may not be in here. I don't know how else they were gonna know who he is. But, somehow they got their instructions. And I think that, is important. I do. That's all I have to say about that. The rest of this, I have not even tried to decode. I'm like, you know what? I've pretty much seen enough. There was one more thing that I wanted to do. So before I wrap this up, so let me see if I can get to that. And let me get my little thing back up here. And I didn't look at my notes to get to it, but again, these are usually codes by using the capital letters, so we're going to go with C A M, and then do you notice that the numbers are all capitalized? So we're going to go with 13107, and then an L, and then a T, and then an S, and then an O, then a T, and an I, a C, and a W. Now, a lot of times I will reverse this, right? And that's how I read the code. And I probably should reverse this again. But the first thing I want to extract, because I see how that is unusual, is the AM 13107, right? AM 13107. So to me, that means January 31st, 7 a.m. in the morning. Coincidence that these boys drove 600 miles from California to Scottsdale, Arizona, and committed a break-in wearing disguises as delivery people. Oh yeah, that was what I wanted to show you. Another one of those if I could find it. As delivery people in around midday or 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. Right? So 60 miles an hour would be a 10-hour ride. Depending on what time you left, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how long it takes to get there from LA. So, what? So 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I mean, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m. That's 8 hours at pretty much, 60 miles per hour. I think that's a little less than 600 miles, but maybe they left early, maybe they drove a little fast, but it looks like that they were scheduled to leave on the trip. This guy's saying goodbye. Make sure that they had everything by January 31st at 7 a.m. in the morning. I mean, I don't know how you mince that. I want to see if I can see this one more thing before I finish up, because I found it, but I don't think I took an individual picture of it. I might have. It was right around here. Yeah, somewhere around here was a guy dressed like a delivery dude. I'm going to take a quick look to see if I took a picture of that, but I may not have. Oh, actually, you know what? It was in that same picture that we had with the weapons. See the guy right here? Yeah, looks like a delivery guy, like he's delivering refrigerators. So again, they were dressed up like delivery people. So we have a delivery guy, we have a restrained man, we have his wife over here looking at him being bound and beaten. We got 2 individuals in the picture. These 2 guys look like so he's got that little cheek thing right there is right there, right? And then that round head bottom is right there. So there's that similarity in the cartoonization of these 2 individuals. We have the number 8 that they said was the contact person other than the person red, right? And I was about to get into the final vinyl, right? And I had my little notepad up, and we were breaking out that this seems like a date and time, right? That's the date and time. That's the date that the attack took place. So is AM 13107, right? Just coincidence that matches that date and can be considered a morning time? I mean, it's just amazing, right? I'm going to reverse this thing like I normally do. Reverse code. So we'll do that real quick. And so that would be WCITOSTL minus the number MANC. So we'll go W and space C. And this is pretty much going to wrap it for me. So what I want you to see here is, like, if we don't think about the W for a second, because I don't exactly know what they mean with that, and we just go to right here, what do you think we can pull out of there, right? I'll show you. City of Scottsdale. I mean, you tell me. Is this coincidence? Am I forcing it? Can I pull Pittsburgh out of here? Can I pull Denver out of here? Can I pull the city of Costa Mesa out of that little area right there? It's not that anagrams are impossible to crack or that there's so many possibilities you can't narrow them down. We solve personalized license plates every day. People give you enough clues, right? And those are only 7 characters. So all of those things in this one little card, right? I mean, it makes you wonder, right? So the only thing we had left is a W, a M, an M, and an A, and that date. Now, I can't tell you what WMA means. Right? It could be white males in Arizona. Right? That really is kind of hard to figure it out unless you know exactly what it is. Now, I will tell you this, that the W oftentimes is a symbol that people in the zodiac used as family, right? And the guy who's running this thing is ex-zodiac. That's what he was doing in the 60s before he faked his death in 1971, and he is using the same protocol. He's been doing this stuff for like 60 years, which is why it's so easy to read for me, is because I've seen so much of it looking at 6 decades of his work, right? And apparently, from what I've been told by some informers, right, that there's a younger generation that's being groomed in this area. They're supposed to be revolutionaries for society, but you know, he's been the criminal element all along. So that would just leave M and A. Anybody can guess what that is. I have no idea. It might be Mr. Albert. I need you to do all this at this time, Mr. Albert. Now, I will say this, Albert Lee Terry Jr., who also is David Collins, right? Friar David Collins, formerly of St. John Apostle, Kingston, Ontario, Canada, also maintains what we believe is a residence in the either Quebec or Montreal area. He uses a hockey player as one of his icons in his coding. So remember when TMZ had somebody calling in talking about, if you give me a quarter of a half of a Bitcoin, I could tell you that there's an international person, but he didn't know who the guy was. He just said there's an international person. So if in the instructions for these kids not to know who the actual mastermind is, considering they were new and you didn't know how much you can trust about whether they would cooperate or not if they got caught, it would make sense if Albert, even though he has this need to sign everything that he does, which he does, right? I believe he would have signed this, but he probably is just saying Montreal Albert. Just giving a general description that he's in Canada, right? So that's the presentation. And again, I don't think anybody cares about the truth anymore. I do, but there's nothing I can do, because every official person that I talk to that actually has the power to make a difference only calls me up to talk shit to me and shut me down, and then doesn't get back to me with any type of collaboration whatsoever, and seems to be really pissed that I make these videos that show the direct evidence that's obviously pointing towards a certain individual who's coordinating people to commit murder, suicide, murder, extortion, kidnapping, ransom, which if they got any of the money would be include wire fraud. Just, if I walked across the street, right, with my pants hanging down, I get a ticket for indecent exposure and jaywalking. It's just amazing. May God help us all. But the answer to Nancy Guthrie's location is not far from her home. And the people involved, no matter what your politics, no matter how afraid you might be or what's going on, the public has fallen in love with that lady. And Albert Lee Terry Jr. finally messed with somebody that people care about. Peace out. I'm Steve Butler. That's my presentation.